here are two more really interesting division questions. Let's get right into it. I'm going to start with this one, 17 fitting into 3,309. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look at this 17 and I'm going to think, 17 is actually closer to 20. I should probably round this number up to 20 and make it a bit easier to deal with. I can do my problem if I don't round up, but this way it'll be a little bit easier. So now that that's rounded up, I'm going to use that in my first stage. Remembering our 4 stages are divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. So first I'm going to divide. 20 fits into 3 0 times, but 20 fits into 33 1 time. There we go. So it fits in 1 time. Then next to that, I'm going to do 17 times 1. So after my divide step, I always make sure to use my original number, which is the 17. Then multiply those two together. That gives me 17. So below the 33, I'm going to write 17. Then I'm going to subtract. 33 minus 17. Oh, I have to borrow. So I have 13 minus 7 gives me 6. And 2 minus 1 gives me 1. Very good. Next I bring down the next number. And before I bring down, I just check, is 16 smaller than 17? Why, yes it is, so we're good. So bringing down the 0, now I'm going to see how many times 20 fits into 160. To do that, I can estimate. Cover up the 0, cover up the 0. 2 fits into 16 8 times. So then that's what I'm going to multiply together, the 8 and the 17. So 17 times 8. 7 times 8 gives me 56. 8 times 1 gives me 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. That gives me 136. It seems a little bit small, but let's see what happens when we minus it. Minus 136. 0 minus 6, I can't do it, so I'm going to cross that out. 6, put a 5. 10 minus 6 gives me 4. 5 minus 3 gives me 2. 1 minus 1 gives me 0. 24 is bigger than 17, which means it must fit in more than 8 times. It must fit in 9 times. So if I had done this in pencil, I could just erase it all, but because I've done it in pen, I have to do a little bit more work. So I'm just going to cross out the 8. Has to fit in 1 more than 8 times, so it must fit in 9 times. I'm going to cross out my subtraction question here, remembering that the number I have to subtract from is 160. So with that taken care of, I'm going to now do 17 times 9. So 9 times 7 gives me 63. 9 times 1 gives me 9, plus 6 gives me 15. 153 is still smaller than 160, so that's looking a lot better. So now I'm going to subtract 153. 0 minus 3 can't do it, so I borrow. 10 minus 3 gives me 7. And 5 minus 5 gives me 0. 1 minus 1 gives me 0, so I have 007 left over. Then I bring down the next number. There we go. I get a 79. So now I have to think, how many times does 20 fit into 79? So I'm going to estimate again. 2 fits into 7. 1, 2, 3, 4. 3 times. 3 times 17, let's try it. Times 1 gives me 3, 4, 5. That gives me 51. Ooh, that seems pretty low. Before I write that over here, I'm going to do the subtraction over here and see what happens. So 79 minus 51. Yeah, that's way too big. 28, so it must fit in more than 3 times if that number's so big. It's bigger than the 17. So I'm going to erase my 3. I'm going to see if it fits in 4 times. So then I do 17 times 4. 4 times 7 gives me 28. 4 times 1 gives me 4, 5, 6. 68, that seems a lot closer. Let's subtract that. 9 minus 8 gives me 1. 7 minus 6 gives me 1. I have 11 left over. 11 is smaller than 17. Good. And there's no more number to bring down, so that must be my remainder. So I write my remainder one of two ways. I could write it remainder 11, or I could write it as 11 over 17. And there's my answer for my first problem, 194 remainder 11, or 11/17. So sometimes when we estimate, we have to go through our calculations a few more times because it's not always going to give us the exact number of times it fits in, but it gives us a rough estimate, and that's closer often than if we use the regular 17. So that's what we're looking for. Let's take a look at this one now. 23 into 2,200 and excuse me, 71. So 23, that's okay to stay like that. I could write it down if I really wanted to, but I think I'll just leave it like that. How many times does 23 fit into 22? Oh, well, it doesn't really fit in any time, so I'm going to put a 0 up here. 0 times 23 is 0. That gives me 0. So now I go straight to looking at the first three numbers. How many times does 23 fit into 227? To estimate, I'm going to take the last number off each of those. 2 fits into 22 11 times. Oh, that's weird. 11's too big because 11 is bigger than our place can possibly manage. That is tricky. So in that case, I'm going to go down. It must fit in 10 times. Oh, but I can't write a 10 there either. That doesn't work either. So then I go down to the next one. Oh, 9. It must fit in 9 times. So that might seem a little bit weird, but sometimes you have to do that because you can't write a number bigger than 9 up here. So if your estimate is bigger than 9, you have to write a 9 instead. So there we go. That's a 9 now. So we do 23 times 9. 3 times 9 gives me 27. 9 times 2 gives me 18, 19, 20. That gives me 207. Good. So now I'm going to subtract that off. 207. 7 minus 7 gives me 0. 2 minus 0 gives me 2. 2 minus 2 gives me 0. I get 20. 20 is smaller than 23, so that's good. So then I bring down the next number. 201. And I think, how many times does 23 fit into 201? So once again, I cover up the last number of each. 2 fits into 20 10 times. Oh, but once again, 10 is too big. We can't write a 10 down. So instead of writing 10, I'm going to write a 9. That's the next biggest number that I can possibly write. And I already know what that calculation is. 23 times 9 gives me 207. But now we have another problem. 207 is bigger than 201. That means when I subtract these two, I'm not going to be able to get a nice answer. So that means that 9 must be too big because 207 is bigger than 201. So if it's not a 9, it must be an 8. 23 times 8, we'll do that up for a minute. 3 times 8 gives me 24. 2 times 8 gives me 16, 17, 18, 184. That seems pretty small, but let's just try it out and see what happens. So 201 minus 184. Oh, can't do that, so I'm going to have to borrow from way over here. That becomes a 9. That becomes an 11. 11 minus 4 gives me 7. 9 minus 8 gives me 1. 1 minus 1 gives me 0. I have 17 left over, and 17 is smaller than 23, so we know that's good. So then up here, I write my remainder. Remainder 17, or 17 over 23. This one, I would say, is very tricky, grade 4s. Please remember, if you get an estimate that is bigger than 9, you have to just write 9. You can't write a number bigger than 9. Otherwise, you are going to mess yourself up a little bit. So keep an eye on questions like that because they will happen. Have a lovely day.